Good morning. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Tumi Tladi, and today is Tuesday, the 7th of September 2021. Time is 2 minutes after 11 a.m. and I'm gonna do a follow-up on this series that I have just completed recently. It's Web API series, and because I created this YouTube channel with the intent of me being my own biggest fan, meaning that as I continue to show and then teach, I get to identify some weird stuff. So one of the videos that we covered was on response types, particularly focusing on JSON, right? So what I've learned, I believe in one of these features, I saw something weird on let me go to Visual Studio. I saw something weird on ASP.NET Web API for .NET Framework. Just a reminder, this is 2-in-1, both MVC and Web API, right? So now I want to show something from .NET Core because I'm still busy doing something. So recently in .NET Core, I was rearranging the response types and the comments. So I want to show a sample of V3. So let me go to V3 for business controller. Okay, so this is .NET Core project, as you can see, .NET Core project, right? Now I want to move it upstairs. Put it here. Now, one of the things that I'm currently busy is to rearrange the order of these comments. Now, these comments are very important for documentation purposes. In this regard, we're talking about Swagger. I haven't seen them effectively being used for Postman, but for Swagger, this is very, very important. So the order is very important because not just the order of the comments, but the order of what gets to be produced as a response type. They have to match. If I'm gonna return 4.1, I need to have, you see, status code 4.1 unauthorized. And then second, it's 4.4, I have to return status code 4.4 not found. And then lastly, 200, status 200 OK. Now look at the types, because prior there were no types. So this one is gonna have to return this as the body, response body, right? Incorrect API key to access this source. So I have to explicitly tell that the type's gonna be string, and then if the key is null, or if the key is not what we know, you're gonna return this. So I want to show you how different .NET Core is from .NET Framework. So this is .NET Core. Let's look at the V3 for .NET Framework. So this V3, as you can see, for .NET Framework, right? Cool. I can just quickly open the same document because I've just edited this document. There we go. It's the same document. So the same thing I just did. I fixed the comments that are necessary and then fixed the order. And then I still cannot find a way to explicitly say you're gonna return or you're gonna produce this response type. I only said string, and I'm hoping that it will know automatically. Why am I saying this? Because in .NET Core, we are using this object status code. It will give us this enumerable or as constant values like 4.1 unauthorized, 200 OK, but in .NET Framework we don't have the flexibility. Okay, but this is okay for now. Another thing that, if you look at the return type, look at this return type, action result. You see this return type, action result, and I want to go and focus on 404, which is not found, this method. So it creates not found object result that produce a status code. You see status code 404 not found response, right? It has overloaded version, right? In this case, it takes in the value of type object. That's how we're able to pass this guy. And I did test it, it works. Now here's the thing. In the .NET Framework, I tried to do the same thing and I had to do a research. So I want to comment this guy out. And I want to write return not found. There it is, it's acceptable. But as soon as I do this, it doesn't show that it has overloaded versions of this method. It doesn't. Okay, then let me try to get this error message in here as string. Look what it does. And then the error says, listen, no overloaded for method not found takes one argument. So there's no version that takes at least one argument in this case. So I had to do a research. Now my research led me to discover this method, and then there's been a hot debate on Stack Overflow which approach to use. Some people that are creating custom helper methods to handle this, but I found the most lenient one because I want to show something. Let me do this of the return types. So if you look at this and I do this guy, and it says, you know, create a method, blah, 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 blah. Now, I'm not going to do any of those things. I'm not going to do that. But one guy suggested that instead of returning HTTP action result, just return the same thing here, which is action result. So I'm going to remove this HTTP. Notice what's going to happen. Now it shows a red squiggle, and if I do this, it's looking for a different namespace. So I'm not going to do using, I'm going to add it in the same line. Look at this. It gets to be fixed by introduce other problems. See, even a typical OK, it's now being questioned. 404, it's now being questioned. Either way, even if I remove this guy, it still is questioned, meaning that this namespace of system.web.mvc.action result, it's not applicable because this is MVC stuff. This is not web API stuff. I hope it makes sense. So let me undo stuff. There, so it needs to be HTTP action result, the return type, right? Not action result. This is .NET Core, but this is a .NET framework. So what I had to do then was to introduce, based on my research, introduce this content. So this content comes from system.web.http.result. It's of type negotiated content result, right? So this guy allows me to pass in this object of status code, in this case 404, here it is, and then with the string value. And then I tested this and it works. This version works. So not just a 404 doesn't have overloaded version of a 404 method, but also this guy, which is unauthorized. With a typical unauthorized, it doesn't allow that to happen. So let's do return unauthorized. It's there, but there's no overload version. Well, there is, but it's different, right? And then if we do this, it's acceptable. But if we start typing Tumi Tladi, it's not acceptable. It doesn't take in a string, as you can see, cannot convert from string to from this namespace authentication header value. So that's the unauthorized that became an issue also. So we no longer do this. Instead, we do content of type unauthorized. Then we can pass in our custom error message. This was something very, very fun that I just learned, and it's very easy to understand this. Just understand what's different from the .NET Framework to the .NET Core. Understand the return types, understand what gets to be produced, and this is how it's supposed to be, because if the code, it's not what we are looking for, instead of the response body being no content, it should return this guy. It's very, very important. Very, very important. Meaning that the clients that are going to make use of this endpoint, mobile applications, web applications, IoT devices, desktop applications, they're going to now not just being presented with 4.1, but also with what comes out of that message header. So this was a fun thing to do, really was very, very, very fun thing to do. And then as I can show with the difference, looking at the Git history and Git diff, well, Git diff in this case. So, there's another thing that I forgot to show. So previously, let me do this. There was something here, and there was a helper method. This is what I'm trying to show you. There was a global variable, instantiating this object, application DB context. So let me, for now, application DB context class, right? And then with this variable name or instance, right? Yes. And then that guy was only being utilized effectively on this helper method where we are doing garbage collection. So where we are doing application DB context or dispose. So this method, I removed it because it's unnecessary. The reason why it's unnecessary, each endpoint here, it's making use of the using block. So in there, I'm instantiating this object internally. And I'm also doing garbage collection automatically in here. I hope it makes sense. And also the second endpoint that I'm using this using block, and then I'm dealing with everything inside. So there was no need for that private read-only application DB context is equals to new application DB context, blah 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 blah. No, there was no need for that anymore. So these are the improvements that I'm very much serious about, making the system readable, maintainable, and easy. So I'm very excited about what I've just did, and I'm gonna continue now to move for the rest to the rest of these features, especially in this controller. So now I just did a business, and then with that being said, I can just hit commit. There we go, because it needs to be readable, it needs to be easily maintainable. With that being said, I'm still currently in the midst of a new series called it's called Xamarin, but I'm doing it from my laptop, where I'm using the actual physical device to mirror the actual app. So I'm gonna go now to my laptop and do the work from there. With that being said, thank you very much. I hope I provide some insight, because we're still learning. I'm still learning, and I hope you are learning also. I'm still, becoming good because I care about what I build, and I'm learning. Every research leads to me discovering stuff like this, and it's just fantastic. With that being said, thank you very much. Until next